The future of teaching. How best to support educators to be leaders of learning in times of uncertainty. Please welcome our moderator for this session, Dr. Andrew Cunningham, Global Lead Education, Aga Khan Foundation.
Finally, our session about the future of teaching has arrived, and we could not be more thrilled to be here. Can we just give it up for teachers all around the world and how they are making a difference in rewiring education? Fantastic. So everyone can please be seated. Yes, over there. And Gwen, you're just here. Fantastic. Thank you. It is an honor to be with you today to moderate this high-level panel about the future of teaching. How best to support educators to be leaders of learning in times of uncertainty. Thank you to the Rewired Summit, our friends at Dubai Cares, and all of you for making this session today an extraordinary one. In short, we as a global education community must do more to ensure that teachers are the key constituency for co-creating the future of education together. We know this is true for many reasons, but two big ones stand out. First, from personal experience. Every one of us in this room and around the world knows that we are here thanks to the teachers who valued us, respected us, and loved us. The second reason is we know it from research. Over and over again, the global evidence is unanimous that investing in the quality of teachers is one of the most important factors for improving learning outcomes in the 21st century. But do we know how to truly rewire education through genuine co-creation with and for teachers around the world? In response, 2 years ago, a coalition of visionary philanthropic partners, Dubai Cares, the Oak Foundation, the Lego Foundation, Jacobs Foundation, IKEA Foundation, Wellspring Philanthropic Fund, the Ital Social Foundation, Portuguese, and the Aga Khan Foundation collaborated with educators and education system partners to create a new global initiative that places teachers at the heart of achieving SDG 4 by 2030. This is called Schools 2030. And in 2020, 1 week before the pandemic broke out, this program launched in partnership with 1,000 government schools across 10 countries to support preschool, primary school, and secondary school teachers to lead new ways to assess, design, and showcase what works to improve learning outcomes for all. Each year, teachers against all odds across these 10 countries produce 1,000 teacher-driven solutions through a human-centered design process that responds to the contextual realities of their classrooms in some of the most challenging contexts in the world. One context in particular, the government of Kampala in Uganda, a country where the schools have been shut down for 2 years. One of the schools that partnered with Schools 2030 was called Upper Secondary Prison. Working with teachers who are responsible for helping the young inmates with short sentences to acquire the literacy, numeracy, and most importantly, those attitudes of self-worth and self-awareness to be ready to re-enter society after their sentences. This is the type of unlikely alliances that Rewired has brought to the stage. We have witnessed teachers throughout Schools 2030 in the 10 countries in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, India, Portugal, and Brazil in bringing teachers at the stage of system leaders. And we're excited by Schools 2030 global partner 100.org, who will later this afternoon launch a new offline and online portal called faved.org, where the emerging solutions from these 1,000 teachers, but from any teacher around the world, can be uploaded, exchanged, and faved. It's sort of the new like button in, I guess, the meta universe from Facebook. At the end of the program in 10 years, Schools 2030 is seeking to create more than 10,000 new actionable learning solutions by more than 50,000 teachers across 10 countries, strengthening this elusive link between schools and systems and schools. I was a 5th grade teacher, so I'm used to having a clipboard in my hand. And this is why our friends at Dubai Cares, as the first founding members of Schools 2030, have invited us here to celebrate more examples of how we as an education community can better ensure that all of our approaches to rewiring education are rooted in the triple C approach: constant co-creation with teachers. I'm thrilled, therefore, today to be joined on the stage with teachers and teacher educators here and also virtually from Uganda, India, Ghana, and Lebanon, in direct conversation with some of the most senior leaders of the premier international development organizations of Teach for All, the Aga Khan Foundation, Plan International, and Save the Children. All 4 of the organizations on stage share a common commitment to co-designing global education programs with teachers, valuing teachers as the leading experts in the room, and dare I say, the education policy entrepreneurs for the world. We are excited, therefore, to kick things off with our first pair of conversation that will be emphasizing the importance of teacher leadership and innovation in times of uncertainty. It is a privilege and honor to introduce now Khadija Bakhtiar, the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Teach for Pakistan, and Mr. Emmanuel Kimuli, an educator from Teach for All in Uganda. Over to you, Khadija. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. Good afternoon. Throughout the pandemic, we witnessed incredible teacher leadership from educators who work at the front lines of our education systems. And we saw and we talked a lot about the digital divide that was keeping the vast majority of kids across the world from learning. And when we look at what was happening within the Teach for All network, we saw so many examples that showed us that when it comes to overcoming that digital divide, technology is not the driving force there. It's the leadership of teachers who understand this work and the needs of the kids who they're working with the best. And I have the honor today of being in conversation with one such incredible leader. Emmanuel, welcome.
Thank you.
I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about what was happening in March 2020 when the pandemic hit and you were teaching in your village in Senda. Take us back to that moment, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to share this. As a locally rooted and globally informed educator from Uganda, I am fully convinced that the only way out of poverty for my learners deep down in rural Uganda is education. So when the pandemic hit and the president announced the closure of schools, I knew that the learning of my learners was lying in balance. So in my village, without electricity and access to internet for almost all learners, I knew that I had to innovate and to keep them learning. So I had to use what was actually available. So for me, what was available was not internet and electricity. All I had was a pen and paper. So I immediately went to work and started writing learning packets for my children to keep learning. So I knew that I couldn't do it alone, so I engaged the community leaders and informed them to mobilize the parents to keep sending the children to pick the learning packets that they were supposed to complete from their homes and then return them for review, after which they would be issued another learning packet. So through that approach, my children kept learning, and I'm glad I stayed when schools were closed.
What fantastic resourcefulness and adaptation that was needed in the moment. What did you do next?
So, yes, they are deep in the village in rural Uganda, but I know that they exist at a time when technology is driving everything in the world. So I am really concerned that they get access to the digital skills as early as possible. So on one hand, I was issuing out the learning packets and keeping them learning. But on the other hand, I was also figuring out how do I accord them access to the digital tools. So in the process of researching about how to accord them access to the digital tools, I actually came across an opportunity to work with a group of high school students in the US who are called the student change makers. So the student change makers at that time were actually planning to fundraise and avail tablets for learning for schools in Uganda. So when I came across that opportunity, to me, it was a heaven-sent opportunity for my children, and I worked with them, and they were able to fundraise and get 29 tablets for my school and 2 solar panels to power them. And as I talk now, my children can learn both digitally and non-digital, and it is really exciting.
Wow, that's fantastic, Emmanuel. And
I think we have a photo also of those digital resources, if we can put that on the slide. Sorry to interrupt.
And this is, I mean, it's so fantastic, but I have to say, you make it sound so easy to get tablets and start to use technology for learning in a village that has no electricity. What were some of the challenges that you faced along the way, and how did you cope with them?
Yes, so getting the tablets surely sounds easy when I'm saying it, but along the way, I think there was need to put so many things together. So like in this school where almost all buildings actually don't even have windows, don't have doors. So basically all this had to actually be put together for me to be sure that the tablets would be, for example, stored securely and then be used by the children. So because of the so many challenges, I figured out that at that point, first of all, I wouldn't give up because I want my children to have a brighter future at all costs. So I knew that I couldn't do it alone. So at that point, I called upon the parents to stand with me, and we put everything together so that at the end of the day, we could achieve what we wanted to achieve. So the community came in, renovated the building, and so when the tablets came, they were secure. They are secure even now, and the children are learning. Their skills are improving. There is accelerated learning for them, and to me, the future is brighter for them.
Yeah, that's a lovely example of just bringing so many people together to solve a problem that everybody really cares about. And so, Emmanuel, now when you look at your kids using technology, how do you see it working for them? What has changed for them?
Yes, technology is good, and we really need to be concerned that our children are using the technology in learning. But I think most importantly is that we have to first develop their foundational skills in numeracy and literacy first. So when the tablets came, and then they were using them, I actually came to realize that we needed to invest more in the foundational skills. So when the tablets now were available, prior to using the tablets, we actually did more remedial lessons to ensure that they were up to speed with the foundational skills. But then after actually getting them better equipped with the foundational skills, you realize that when you give them the tablets, one, they own their learning. It is exciting to use the tablets. It is. For them, it is actually a new experience. They enjoy it. And because of the excitement, honestly speaking, they learn at a faster rate using the tablets. But of course, that happens after equipping them with the foundational skills.
Right.
Yes.
And I know we're almost at time, but what's next for you and your students?
Yes, I am so convinced that my children can compete favorably in this technology-driven world, and I want them to get the real skills. So my dream for their community is that there will be a real computer school to give them the digital skills for work as early as possible, so that maybe one day it should be them to set up a center like Dubai Exhibition Center, but in Uganda, because I know it is possible for them.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And thank you for reminding us. I think that even when we're thinking about how do we support teachers, thinking specifically about how do we invest in their leadership and how do we really empower them to understand what's needed on the ground and then act resourcefully, that's what the need of the time is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give a huge round of applause to Emmanuel. I also understand that this is Emmanuel's first time outside of Uganda, so I think you are the ambassador for your school and also the ambassador for champion teachers throughout the country. I just want to see a show of hands. How many of you had a favorite teacher? Now, raise your hand if you have seen that teacher on a stage like today. We need all of those teachers to be on the stages just like Emmanuel today. Thank you very, very much. So I'd like now to invite Ms. Rashmi Prabha to join us virtually from Bihar, India, and turn the conversation now to our second topic around how might we be thinking about effective approaches to contextual and flexible funding for creating spaces for teacher innovation. So to get us started, I'm thrilled and a little nervous since he's my big boss, and honored to introduce Mr. Michael Kocher, the General Manager of the Aga Khan Foundation, and Ms. Rashmi Prabha, a teacher educator. Hi, Rashma. From Bihar Teacher Training Institute in India. Over to you, Michael.
Andy, thank you. You're doing pretty well so far. Thank you for welcoming us today, and warmest congratulations to all of our friends at Plan International, Save the Children, Teach for All, Teach for Pakistan, gathered here for ensuring the teacher leadership just, remains as it must at the heart of our approach to improving the quality of education worldwide. I don't think that there's much room for debate that beyond the family of a child, who is more fundamental and central to their life than a teacher. The Aga Khan Foundation is privileged and humbled truly in its work over the last 5 decades, supporting hundreds of thousands of educators across Asia, Africa, Europe, in quite challenging learning environments. Our thoughts today, our collective thoughts, are with the girls and boys, the women and men of Afghanistan. Through the leadership of these educators, we have supported millions of learners to achieve quality education by first listening to community needs. And we'll hear more about that in a moment. Andy mentioned Schools 2030 as one of the ways that together we're co-creating the future of learning with educators. Could not be more excited about this initiative. At the heart of the programming is something we call the Flexible Response Fund. It's a vehicle where local communities and educators themselves decide what's most needed to help their children come to school, stay in school, have fun in school, thrive and learn. It's been recognized by the UN Girls Education Initiative, PwC among others, as a global best practice. And we've been able to roll this out in many countries even before Schools 2030 launched with great success. Our biggest lesson so far is one that is both patently obvious and too often ignored. We cannot predetermine what educators need to help students that they know best. Instead, we have to foster long-term shared journeys of collaborative design, meaningful support, and actionable innovation to help educators succeed against steep odds. That's why we are most fortunate to have today Ms. Rashmi Prabha from Bihar, India, on the stage to help us better understand what we need to consider in supporting teachers to be leaders in learning in times of increasing uncertainty. Ms. Prabha, welcome. We're very sorry you can't join us in person, but we are thrilled to have you with us today on the big screen. Ms. Rashmi, Ms. Prabha, can you hear us? Let's just do a quick sound check.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
That's helpful. Ms. Prabha, please, first question today. Let me kick things off by asking, as a teacher and educator in India, you've taught a great many students the art of teaching. what makes a good teacher, and how do you teach teaching, please?
I have invested my 12 years in working at primary and elementary education, and from last 15 years I am working as a teacher educator. I have experienced that expectations of society is changing from time to time with respect to the political, social and economical aspects. This pandemic has changed this expectation very rapidly. My response to the question that what makes a good teacher and what kind of teachers we need for future is based on my experience that I have working together with different types of teachers. Some teachers are in this profession with their choice, but some are in this system without any interest. For a teacher educator, it is a big challenge to give opportunity to all of them so that they may develop a vision to use their capability in finding the solution of their day-to-day problem in local aspects, but a new approach. We want nature lover teacher and digitally equipped human teacher. I can share one example of human-centered design workshop of School 2030 program. There I observed that teachers were engaged with their peers in finding the problems in local communities. This was very joyful and meaningful because they were trying to find solution in their with local context, and the solution was based on their real experience. The process for this design were based on their interaction with peer group and local public. This critical analysis of case study and interaction with local people gives an idea for innovative work. I feel that reflection, collaboration, and co-orientation are very effective for managing innovation, for encouraging the community, for doing for their betterment. I appreciate School 2030 team that they have these ideas in the center of their discourse.
Ms. Prabha, thank you. That's a wonderful answer with a number of illustrative examples. I wholly agree with you, and I think speak for the group, that your emphasis on the need for more co-creation is quite inspiring and fundamental. However, as everybody in this room knows, as you know best, as I know, teachers are equal parts busy and overworked. How can we actually create more time and space for teachers to, in fact, be innovative, please?
We need to work more on social emotional learning and managing academic emotions at every level. I must appreciate a human-centered design which gives opportunity to discuss on local issues with local peoples. I can share one example of recent innovation, the learning wall. This solution was innovated during lockdown when all the normal functioning of a school system were totally collapsed, completely closed. Few numbers of government school team and School 2030 team were engaged in a discussion that what a school is. And they reached to a conclusion that a school does not mean a physical structure only with certain few other infrastructures. The entire ecosystem where we learn is part of a school, and the simple thing which helps in meaningful learning activities is a part of that system. In my example, a simple wall is the innovation. In a group, after discussion, they take a decision to use a simple wall for learning activities, and accordingly, volunteers shared a foldable whiteboard on wall every morning under the heading, they write a puzzle or a question. The local community people started to gather near that wall and they discuss to solve this problem. Nearly all the community members, the elders, the youngers, the children, the ladies, all were very interested in these activities. They take every day, they gather in, and they wanted to solve those puzzles in this way. That simple wall encouraged them to solve problems in community. These activities were very joyful and meaningful. Such kind of innovation promotes teachers to design new strategy for better output. We need to provide more exposure to teachers for newness in their working process. I believe that innovation comes from confidence, passion, and reflection. For this, we need collective approach to work on a simple line which helps our community.
Ms. Prabha, I very much like this notion of a learning wall, and the woman in front of me nodding in agreement and giving you a thumbs up sign. You know, it's simple, it's powerful, and it's an example of this concept of learning as an ecosystem, where you bring it to the community, where it's alive and dynamic, and it's pretty easy to picture families, other community folks, children, sort of assembling around that learning wall on a given morning or an evening and talking with these kids about what's going on. Extremely powerful. Certainly as parents, that resonates. Ms. Prabha, we only have a few minutes, but you have the ears and rapt attention of all the education decision makers in the room today. Please, what message would you like to leave with them?
Teachers need friendly and flexible environment to opt new practices in their day-to-day work culture. They may do mistakes, but we need to take it as one step forward towards better output. This will improve their confidence level and to be output-oriented teacher. We need to respect them and attach and enable them so that they may respect their profession. We are co-passenger in this journey where our goal is to make this society equitable, sustainable, and happier. Work together to develop human teachers who can take care of climate, concept, and children with their own interest. This requires a long-term strategy and lots of patience with commitment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You really are an inspiration and a champion. You know, as a parent, I am without question certain my sons would be very lucky to have you as a teacher in their classroom, and we are very grateful that you joined us today. Andy, back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Let's give a huge round of applause to Rashmi. I mean, let's also discuss what it's like to talk to the world through a camera in also a different language. Just imagine a language that you're not used to every single day and trying to make a global speech. I think we don't listen enough to teachers in their local languages. We will have our last speaker be speaking in Arabic for our last session. So if you do not have a headset, follow the example of Gwen to make sure you have one and make sure that they are passed out. So now turning to our third conversation, and it's about effective approaches to teacher training and mentorship to support quality learning and equitable education. I just want to make sure that the energy in the room is actually what a fifth grade classroom might be. Can everyone just stand up for teachers? Stand up. Who stands up for teachers? Excellent. Who actually puts 2 thumbs up into the air for teachers? Who also does actually 4 thumbs up for teachers? Pump. Excellent. Thank you for sitting down. So now over to our third pair to introduce Dr. Tanjina Mirza, Chief Programs Officer for Plan International Canada, together with Charlotte Adinku, Master Teacher and Trainer and Education Team Manager at Plan International Ghana. Over to you, Tanjina. Thanks.
Thank you so much. You are doing such an amazing job of coordinating this. I'm just loving it. Thank you so much. One of the important things when this COVID pandemic has shown is that it has not been an equally affecting everyone. And although with this 2-year shutdown, we saw the socio-economic impact of the COVID was enormous. It showed us how unequal this world is. The impact has not been same everywhere, and it is more so for girls. 20 million girls who have been out of school. During this pandemic, many of them may not even get back to school ever. There will be a high risk of early pregnancy, early marriage, early pregnancy, and all the gains that we have seen in the last few decades in reducing the gender parity in education could be gone. The long-term gains we had thought about girls being the social, political, economic opportunities in their life could all be gone. So this pandemic has been a real eye-opener, not just as a health epidemic, but the socio-economic impact on gender inequalities has been tremendous one. Going back to the main topic of teachers, teachers are the main backbone of an education system. Teachers are also responsible for making sure the barriers the girls face in school can be reduced. Female teachers are role model for young girls to look up to, say, and I can become a teacher. So the teachers, female teachers especially, play a tremendous role in making sure the girls are not only coming to school, but are staying. So they have a huge power to break down the stereotypes of girls not going to school. So in this journey, I would love to introduce my colleague here. As we know, her name is Charlotte Adinku. She's a master trainer in one of our most innovative projects in Ghana, funded by Dubai Cares. And big thanks to Dubai Cares for hosting this amazing session here. They also funded this project. So I would love to ask Charlotte, can you tell me a little bit more about this project and how did you actually pivot during the pandemic in Ghana?
Okay, thank you very much. So we had a project, T4T, that's Trained for Tomorrow, funded by Dubai Cares, that uses satellite technology to reach out to 20 training colleges across the country. So we have a studio, so you can have one teacher being able to reach out to so many schools at a time. And we use satellites to do that, to train teachers. So during the pandemic, it came all of a sudden. Schools had to close down. And that was the time that I really saw how important it is to use technology to reach out to learners and teachers across the country. So as a teacher and already using the technology, it was an opportunity for me to train my fellow teachers on how to develop digital content. And it was also a time that I realized that we teachers, we really need to know and learn and to have the opportunity of how to develop digital content.
Charlotte, is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Oh.
So it gave me the opportunity that I was able to train my fellow teachers. So now it's moved beyond just a project and it became national, such that we partnered with the Ministry of Education, with Plan Ghana, and we had more teachers on board, and we gave them training on how to develop digital content. And the country also set up a learning TV, a whole channel, just to broadcast lessons to learners at home. So now we went beyond just the project, and it was the whole country. And these teachers were trained on how to develop digital content, not just developing digital content, but ensuring that it's bespoke, we met all teacher standards, issues of gender, which Plan International we don't overlook at all, because the content you are developing, you should ensure that the images are on point, the choice of words, how you deliver the sessions and everything. So I had that opportunity to train more teachers, and within a month, we were able to record 420 videos, which was being aired on the Ghana Learning TV, and that was national. And learners could still connect, be at home, and still enjoy lessons. We made the lessons so basic, very age appropriate, and we were able to reach out to over 5 million basic school learners all over Ghana. And aside reaching out to learners, it was also an opportunity to be a role model to other teachers. So I'm just not teaching, I'm just not training teachers, but teachers watching you on the screen at home, learners watching you at home, you are a role model to them. And I realized that both teachers and learners having the opportunity to see somebody modeling, somebody being able to reach the expected standards that is expected of them as teachers. So they were not just home, but in terms of CPD, it was still being developed as they were in the house. And I was so excited to have some learners. They'll call you, "Madam, I saw you on TV, I'm following your lessons," and they'll have 1,000 questions to ask. And it was quite exciting. So we still had that contact with our learners through the technology. And I realized that we teachers, we really need it, because it's a different thing to teach face-to-face, to have the learners with you, and it's a different thing to stand in front of camera, record. It's also a different thing to have few learners in your classroom, maybe 40 people in your class, and now you are teaching the whole nation. And the project Dubai Cares funded, that was how far we were able to reach during the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Al, for sharing that. You mentioned one point about role modeling. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so when it comes to role modeling, there were aspects that you'd be surprised that you have learners in your community who haven't seen a female doctor before, or they've not seen a female police officer before, or a military officer before. So it was an opportunity to bring some of these role models to have interactions with them. They can relate, they can ask them questions, they share their real life experiences, for them to know that the challenge I'm going through, somebody also went through it and has made it, so I can make it. We realized that the various subject areas that teachers find it, learners find it challenging, it's possible the teacher is also having challenges in that. So to have a maths expert coming to talk to the teachers as a subject expert, the teacher is able to guide them, share experiences, and we realize that these are things that raise the aspirations of learners a lot, that they can see it, they can relate, and they want to be like that. They even want to be something more than that. And it was a very good experience for both the teachers and the learners.
Thank you, Charlotte. I also wanted to know, I know a part of this project was funded by the British government, and it included girls and boys clubs. What was the role of the teachers in these girls and boys clubs?
Okay, so we had this project called MG Cubed, which was funded by the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDU, the UK government. And we had a club sessions, and these club sessions, we started with the girls, just girls, because MG making Ghanaian girls great. But with time, we realized that no, there are some things you can't get the girls unless you carry the boys along. So we added boys to it. So we had girls, we had boys, and then we had the mixed sessions also. So there are some things we want to just talk about it as girls. And there are some things we want to talk about it just boys. And there are some topic areas that both sexes come together. And issues that in our culture, parents find it challenging to discuss at home. Issues of sexual reproductive health, issues of abuse, gender-based issues were all discussed at these sessions. And you get girls coming out to share their challenges. You have the opportunity to support them. And their teachers are also trained on how to touch the lives of these children. When the pandemic came, we realized that topics such as psychosocial support was very key, because as planned, issues of gender, handling children with distress is a key thing that we do, and we ensured that they coming back to school, even after the pandemic, the distress they have, the unanswered questions. As a teacher, how do you handle them? Even if they don't say it, how do you identify it? How can you perceive that my children need this, they need that? Because it's not just learning literacy and numeracy, but you need to also touch their lives such that they will have you in their hearts. And in times of challenges and anything, they can reach out to you. So their teachers were also trained in these aspects, which was after school. And it's one of the, it's an aspect of the project that really had a good impact on them, where you even had some girls who are dropped out coming back to school just because of the club sessions that we had, because it allowed girls who have dropped out after school to join the other girls and boys in school for these club sessions, and it was a good experience.
Thank you, Charlotte. We could listen to her for hours, but we have a time constraint. But what it all demonstrates is the importance of teachers in the lives of the students. And one thing I really want to say, and maybe because my mother was a teacher, financially, they're not that well paid. We had a very hard life growing up. Nobody talks about having good salaries, good training. These things need to be important, discussed now, high time, because if we want to attract talented, smart teachers, their salaries, ongoing training, innovation is critical. I think it's high time we talk about these things, and having seen that myself, and teachers like Charlotte and many others, we have seen they need to be supported, they need to be, during the retraining phases, innovation and the flexibility is key. So thank you so much for this topic, and thank you so much to Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Imagine one teacher influencing and informing and inspiring 5 million students. I don't even know what kind of salary that deserves. But another round of applause for Charlotte. Thank you so very, very much. So now we turn to our final conversation. And please, for those of you who are not fluent in Arabic, please do ensure that you have your headsets on, as I will be doing quite shortly. So I would like to introduce our last pair in also having our conversation about how do we promote, building on this topic, Tanjina, how do we promote teacher well-being through co-collecting and co-analyzing data. And I'm thrilled to introduce Gwen Hines, CEO for Save the Children, and with us virtually, Ms. Nagham Baydoun, an educator from Lebanon. Over to you, Gwen. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrew, and thanks to all our brilliant teachers today, and very excited to have Nagham with us online from Lebanon. You've heard today just how transformational teachers are for the students, for the parents, for the wider community. As Save the Children, we very much believe that, and we work through what's called a common approach across the 120 countries we work. We have proven approaches that work with policymakers and teachers to make sure teachers get the support they need, because otherwise it can be a bit lonely, it can be challenging, as well as the issues others have mentioned. So the well-being of teachers feels really important to pick up in this discussion. And just to say, it's very easy to think that COVID is a one-off. But of course, many teachers are dealing with tough circumstances, as Emmanuel said, lack of electricity, Charlotte talking about Ghana. Well, Nagham's going to talk to us about the situation in Lebanon today, which is incredibly challenging. So Nagham, let me turn to you, and can you say more about what life is like for a teacher in Lebanon at the moment? Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for hosting me. I will explain briefly the situation in Lebanon and the crises we have. Lebanon has very exceptional circumstances we haven't witnessed before. We have, with the education sector, other sectors are suffering, like every sector. So we have the pandemic that aggravated the problem of education. Also, of course, the crisis has been very negatively impacting the status of the households in Lebanon, including the Syrian refugee families and the Palestinian refugees. We have early marriage and we have child labor as well. Let me tell you about the low level of the Lebanese lira and the deterioration of the purchase power of the Lebanese people because of the higher prices to unexpected levels. The cost of education in Lebanon is very, very high now, and the schools increased their fees, and the increase was between 30 to 50%, and in some schools the increased fees amounted to 70%. Add to that the lack of electricity because we have higher prices of fuel. We can't even use generators, and this impacted the poorer community in the country. The electricity problem is a third problem. We have lack of electricity for long hours. We know that the schools in Lebanon make use of electricity in order to have lighting in the classrooms and to have generators, and this impacts the children's study at home because there is no electricity in their houses. So they, of course, will face some difficulties physically and psychologically, and a real threat of the sustainability of education. A real risk. I would like to remind you of the explosion in the port of Beirut that took place in August 2020, damaging 280 schools, in addition to corona pandemic and the remote learning, highlighting lots of problems in the education system and real risks that threaten the sustainability of education and the quality of education. A large number of children did not learn partially or primitively, I can say, for a short period of time. So we have a real problem now. All these factors together led 2,000 teachers, highly qualified, to migrate, to leave the country because they couldn't take it anymore without any financial support from the government.
Truly shocking. And can you say more about, of the teachers, how have they responded to help keep learning going in this tough circumstances?
By the end of February in 2017, when there were warnings of corona, talking about the year 2020 in March, we closed the schools and we opted for remote learning. But the efficiency of remote learning was bound to several factors: access to internet, knowledge of the teachers, of the skills needed to have remote teaching, and the parents and care providers' knowledge of these situations. Some teachers depended on the internet fully through having direct classrooms through one of the technological applications. Second part, sent videos to the learners, to the children at homes, and a third type opted for the educational TV channel in coordination with the government. As a personal experience, I can tell you, we in Save the Children team, we responded through raising awareness of corona virus and sending simple messages to the families and caregivers on the how to avoid contacting COVID, and also some psychological and social activities that can be implemented by parents and children. We sent these texts through WhatsApp, and the team in Save the Children sent some educational packages to the children. The success of remote learning in Save the Children was happening because of several factors. First, because of the training we got. Second, the interaction from the families was very good, especially facing the big difficulties we have in Lebanon. Let me give you a quick example. For example, having one telephone in the family to be used by the child in order to learn. And of course, we lack the interactive environment.
Just a bit more about the impact on teachers specifically that you're seeing.
Now,
The economic collapse shed light on the learning sector and on teachers in particular, because of the collapse of the value of the Lebanese lira. Many teachers migrated, left the country. In the absence of any psychological and financial support, the teachers found themselves facing real problems. Some private schools stopped paying teachers their salaries, and many teachers were sacked. And in the government schools, the teachers are still being paid, but the value of their salaries went down drastically.
Much, Nagham. I know we're short of time, but just hearing that makes me have even more respect for teachers than I think we had already. So thank you very much, and Andrew, back to you.
Huge round of applause, please, for Nagham. If you look in her bio on the Rewired app, Nagham has a philosophy for teaching, and it's simple. Students do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that's a huge motto for all of us to be living by. They promised me a wireless mic, so apologies. The picture, therefore, is clear. Emmanuel, Rashmi, Charlotte, and Nagham have made the example for us all to engage in the triple C approach: constant co-creation with and for teachers. Our hope on this panel for everyone around the world is to do one big thing for the future of education. How might you make your 8-minute conversation with a teacher in every week or at least every month in your respective work? Look how much we have learned in each of these 8-minute conversations. Truly together, as a global conversation of teachers and senior leaders in education policy, research, and practice, this is how we rewire education. I thank everyone globally, on stage, and you in the room for standing up for teachers and making sure that they matter most. Enjoy the rest of the Rewired Summit, and thank you very much.